Question number 1. This is talking about gears, basically. There's only so much you can say about manual transmissions and gears and stuff. I mean, you can get into different transmission makes and models and all that kind of thing. Speeds and all that. Transmission gears can do everything except multiply torque and decrease speed, increase speed and increase torque, transfer torque and leave speed the same, change the direction of torque. Well, okay, don't you think they can transfer torque and leave speed the same? Or could they not be able to do that?
You lose torque.
Can they multiply torque and decrease speed? This is an except question. Can they multiply torque and decrease speed? Can you have more torque with lower speed? That's not too hot. That's not too complicated, is it? Can they increase speed and increase torque at the same time?
Yeah. So you lose torque if you gain speed.
Ah, there he is. Give that man a cigar. They can change the direction of torque. They can transfer torque and leave the speed the same. What must be done in order to get the output gear to rotate in the same direction as the input gear?
You gotta put it in full gear, huh?
Yeah. Well, wait a minute now. Isn't that what happened to this transmission over here? The output and the input. You know, years ago on the Army ASVAB test, they used to do this. They would put that on there, and they would say, if this gear is turning clockwise, which way is that gear turning? This was a timed question. You didn't have much, you know. See what I'm saying?
It's turning clockwise.
Turn in the same direction as the other one. Why? I mean, you got a 50-50 chance of getting it right, but tell me why.
The first gear that you was talking about is turning the other gear the opposite way.
Count the gears. If it's an odd number of gears, the last one's turning in the same direction.
Oh,
That's all there is to it.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This one's turning in the same direction that one is. Okay, so tell me about this transmission over here.
Back.
We're driving the input shaft. Okay, we do this the other day. Let's just simplify this a little bit. We're driving the input shaft. The input shaft has got a gear on it, right? Helical cut gear with the teeth slanted like that. It's driving a gear, right? And that gear is hooked to another gear, which is back here. We're not even going to worry about the ratio right now. All right. And then we're going to, and there's our output. That's basically what's going on over there, isn't it? Okay, so this gear, how many gears you got here?
4.
No. Technically, you have 3. This is one gear.
Oh, yeah.
See, this one here this is driving that one. That was driving. What you got here is technically you have the same thing that you would have if you did this.
Yeah.
Because the one on the bottom's all one piece.
Crap.
See, that's a trick question. How many gears I got 4? No. The cluster gear is all one gear because it's all one piece, and it cannot, the different cuts you see on there, the different gears, they can't rotate at a separate speed from each other. And so it's all one gear. So the third gear you've added on a manual transmission is the cluster gear on the rear-wheel drive manual transmission. And a little bit later we're going to get into front-wheel drive manual transmissions, so you can get an idea of how they have to do those differently than that one. And they're kind of fouled up. There's a whole test I give out on them. But anyway, you got to add a third gear. That's the answer to that one. Number 2 is an A, right? You got that? So you get the benefit of this. If I let you guys if I pass this test out and it's an open book thing and you guys are supposed to study it and take it and get your act together, what happens is, one dedicated soul will look up the answer and everybody else winds up getting the answers from him, and all they're doing is writing down letters. They didn't learn a dadgum thing. Ain't that right? And, you know, if I can get, that's like the worksheet. If I can snow job the instructor into thinking I've done the worksheet, even if I haven't, I got it off my clipboard. Never mind the fact that I didn't learn doodly squat about how to do the job the worksheet was supposed to teach me, because I already know that. Sounds good until you get out here trying to do the work, and then you fall on your face, and then you blame it on me, even though you're the one that didn't do the worksheet. Okay, which of the, see, if I sign off a worksheet that you didn't do because you fooled me into thinking you're doing it, who loses? You do. You do, not me. I don't lose anything, except possibly credibility when you get out there in the shop and you fall on your face working for somebody else, right?
I don't want to get like a year's worth of experience with
Huh?
or something like that. It's supposed to be like a year's worth of experience or something like that.
Yeah. Which of the following is a disadvantage? What happened to that thing when you went to J.M. Jackson the other day?
The one?
You went to J.M. Jackson the other day to talk to them about, so you never hear, I never heard how that turned out.
I don't know. He said he talked to the boss man about, you know, how I gotta work on like an hour or so every day.
Which of the following is a disadvantage of, I just wanted to know, I hadn't heard you say anything. Which of the following is a disadvantage of helical gears?
They cannot be used in reverse.
Well,
Why not? Don't that reverse gears up here?
well, usually it's not, but they can be used in reverse. Oh, what about your automatic transmission? Aren't those gears helical? You know, planetary gear set gears, aren't they helical?
Yeah.
And whenever you stop the planet carrier, you got reverse, so you're using those in reverse. Well, that's really not a good answer. And what he was thinking is not a bad thought, because the spur gear typically is how it goes into reverse. But you know, there are transmissions that will use other kinds of gears besides the spur gear for reverse. And that's where I was going with that other statement I was making. But they can't slide into and out of contact with one another, can they? You can't do that, can you? Okay, let me hit you with this. A helical cut gear has got teeth that are curved, right? And in other words, the teeth aren't straight, but the teeth are curved. Let's see if I can turn this around over there. Let's see if I can turn it around and point that right over there. Okay. See, this place looks like a disaster area. All right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to point that over there. Yeah, it doesn't matter what brand you get. Just get the 50/50 coolant. This green. Well, whatever color it is, whatever it calls for the Volkswagen, actually. And they can tell you that. Well, if it says that, you ought to be able to use that one.
Well, you try to go through the plate.
Okay, wait. That's fine. If it's pre-mixed, go ahead and get that.
They will say.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you can do that, right? All right. Okay, that was our little Volkswagen girl. All right, now that right there, see this gear right here? This gear right here, I told her that you would take care of her problem. Okay, right here we got a spur gear, and right here we got helical gears. These gears are helical, this gear is a spur gear. This one, in order to get in there, it slides in there. Now, how many gears do we have that are giving us reverse? How many gears does it transverse or give us reverse? This gear, this gear, that one, and then this one. My gosh, how many gears are that? 20. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. See that? Technically, this gear is all the same. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. That one's meshing down here with that other one. So you got 4 gears, and if you got an even number of gears, the gear that's being driven is going to go the opposite direction. You got it? Yeah. Got that? Make sure you understand that, okay? That's how that's going to work. But that's a spur gear right there. And older vehicles and the big trucks, they use these spur gears. These right here, you got, and on these, the good thing about these gears here, and I think we're going to have a question about it later, is you can have more than one tooth in contact at once, and it's stronger. You know what I'm saying? They're stronger and they're quieter. And these right here have a tendency to clink and clunk and rattle. Now sometimes whenever the engine's idling, the foot's off the clutch, you'll have gear noise, rollover noise in the transmission that's normal. And people on brand spanking new cars will think that my car's a brand new car, I shouldn't hear any noise coming out of the transmission at all whenever I got my foot off the clutch and the engine's idling. But you're going to hear some gear rollover in here. It's just, part of the deal.
I didn't know until I got in this class that the transmission continued to spin even though
everything's spinning except that when it's in neutral.
I didn't know that.
Then you've got your foot off the clutch and all that.
I did not know that.
Well,
I thought it was stopped.
yeah. Well, you know, they probably just never explained it the way that I explained it.
No, they did.
Still. All right, and I'm going to spin this back around, and I'll have to point it back at my face again. All right, and zoom out. Zoom out. Okay, now, what we have, what's the next question here? Which of the following types of gears used for side gears in a manual transaxle? Side gears. 4. What do you find on that, Lawrence?
Oh, I ain't have my book last
What? All right, you look that up for me. I want to know what side gears are. I'm dumb. I don't know anything about what side gears are, and I need you to tell me what side gears are. Lawrence is the scholar, okay? Okay, we're going to jump over that question until Lawrence finds out what side gears are, because I'm just sort of goofy, and I don't know. What side gears? What are you talking about? Anybody know what side gears are? Side gears, side gears. What is that? What's a side gear? Side gears, side gears. We got to track that down. Side gears. Interesting. Okay, we'll move on to number 5 because I'm bumfuddled about that one. A driving gear has 20 teeth and is turning with 20 foot-pounds of torque. Now, you never notice how they put Ob's foot. Ob's is what? And FT is what? Now, why is it? Is the right way to say that foot-pounds or pound-feet?
Pound-feet.
Yeah. But everybody says foot-pounds. Why? You can even look on that snap-on torque wrench out there, and it says pound-feet. It's got those words written out, isn't it something?
I don't know why I do it, but
I told this one guy that was making a stink about that in here one day. He was an ex-military guy that was real, stickler for everything. And, of course, he wound up being a pretty good mechanic when he graduated. But he said he was talking about pound feet, and all this, about how that's what. And I said, look, you can do that's fine, but go into a shop full of people and start saying pound feet, they're going to think you're an idiot. Because nobody out there says pound feet. Everybody says foot pounds, which has really always been interesting to me. Anyway, driving gear has 20 teeth and turning with 20 pound-foot of torque. The gear it's driving has 100 teeth. How much torque is the driven gear producing? Come on, you math guys, and don't text on your phone while we're doing a test here. You have to share your text with everybody in the class next time. Okay. All right, a driving gear has 20 teeth and is turning with 20 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so what do we know already?
got 20 pounds.
We got 20 teeth on the driving gear. This is the gear that's being turned by the engine, right? So we got a gear that's being turned by the engine that's got 20 teeth. There's 20 teeth here. Okay, and it's driving a gear that's got 100 teeth. Right? It's a huge gear. Okay, and this is a 100-tooth gear. All right, so how many times will this gear turn? In other words, how many full circles will this gear turn before this one makes one full circle? This is not so terribly common. 5's not a bad answer. Hey, that's cool. So, if it's turning with 20 foot-pounds of torque, okay, you're going to put Ob's foot, right, if you're going to do that, according to Hoyle. All right, then how are you going to come up with the foot-pounds of torque that it has? Multiply times 5, and that is? That's 100. Okay. That's the answer to that. So which number is that? That's a C, isn't it? So they didn't make a really hard math problem. If they'd have done it, they'd have put some fractions in there, 0.527643 and all that. Yeah. But what type of gear is represented? Do you know what side gears are yet? You found that yet?
I mean, I found a picture of it, but
Don't tell you anything.
Let's see your picture.
he's talking about backlash and stuff.
Yeah. Side gears.
Backlash on the gears.
Yeah. Where are your side gears? Oh my goodness. Side gears. Okay, I see what you're talking about there. That's what they're talking about. My goodness, side gears in a manual transmission. Oh, let me see if I can find my little.
Oh, that's like a dinner difference?
Oh yeah.
Side gears.
Side gears. Yeah, here we go. Right here. See this right here? I love this little differential.
What'd
here.
that come out of?
That came out of some funky little car. Somebody was doing some hot rodding one time, and they was putting some other kind of hot rod chunk in here that was limited slip. and they just let me keep this. And that is just the cutest little thing. I mean, you can hold it in one hand. You can maybe see me bringing that big rear end out, that Explorer in here and hold it up in front of the camera. Okay, right here is these side gears. This is where your CV axles click in. Click, click, see? And then whenever you, the side gears are what kind of gears? Let's go back to that. Which of the following types of gear is used for side gears in a manual transaxle? This is on the final drive. The ring gear is going to connect to here. The pinion gear coming out of the transmission and the output shaft on the transaxle is turning this. And this right here is actually going out to your wheel. This is your final drive assembly. Okay, so what kind of gears are these little gears here? I'd call them spider gears. Spur gears are, you know, they're, but you don't call them spider gears on your answer on your test. Number 4 is Spur bevel gears. These are Spur bevel gears. Those little gears are Spur bevel gears. You can see the shape of them. Yeah, they're Spur and they're bevel. Yeah.
I got a question.
That's cool, huh? Yeah.
Somebody's been talking about welding together so you can have like a...
He welded some.
Where would you weld that together to keep it?
In here, weld it up in here. You got to weld these gears so that they won't turn like that. The only problem is you can't go anywhere except straight down the road without causing one wheel to spin and the other one to... Because when you're turning in a circle, the inside wheel's got to turn slower than the outside. And if you're going to just go take your car like he's doing down to Holt, that particular car... See, the thing about Wes that kind of sets him apart from everybody else is Wes has got cars he uses for play pretties. That's not his main ride. You know, I mean, so he tinkers with the play pretty car, and then he leaves his main ride alone. Of course, I've seen Wes come up here on about 8 different cars, so I don't know how many cars they got, but one way or another. You know, sometimes he does a real nice pickup, sometimes he does a radio Escort. He's always driving anything. I can't ever look and tell who pulled up when Wes is out there because he's always driving something different. There was a girl I used to work with that answered the phone at the switchboard over there years ago at the dealership where I worked, and she never wore the same clothes twice. I don't know how many clothes, I don't know how big her closet was, but I never saw her. She wore really nice clothes, and she was real, you know, conservative dresser, but I've never, the only thing I ever seen her wear more than once was a leather skirt that she had, but everything else was totally different. You know, she must have 1,000 dresses. And I felt like Wes with his car door. But, okay, so we've already got that took care of. We've got a Spur bevel gear there. Now we know what a Spur bevel gear is. What type of gear is represented by a gear ratio of 69 to 1? Or 0.69 to 1? Everybody's talked about overdrive. We've talked about overdrive till we're blue in the face. Now then, what we're going to do is get into these little questions here that aren't multiple choice anymore. These right here, we have 4 short answer questions, and we love those. Don't you just love the 4 short answer questions? To determine the total gear ratio of the entire driveline in a particular gear, they should say, you should do what?
Input shaft and measure how output shaft turns in one full time.
Why don't you do a little math instead? Do some math. Do some math. Whatever happens, what you got to do? Did you come up with an answer on that?
No, I was telling you. I did. You coming up with something.
Well, that would have got you the wrong answer. That would have been. You could. That's one way of doing it, I suppose, but you still got to do some math. And I had. What happened to my black marker? Did I lay it somewhere? Okay. Second-rate amateur, can't keep up with my marker. Okay. This green marker will probably do. Okay, let me ask you this. Remember we were talking the other day on that one. What if we're in first gear on that transmission right there? Okay, first gear, you remember what the ratio was in first gear? On that particular transmission right there, what was the gear ratio in first gear? 4 to 1. 4 to 1, okay? Now that's turning the output shaft, which is going back here to the transmission, to the differential. The final drive, you know, the rear ring gear and pinion, and then that's going to turn this torque 90 degrees and go out in the wheels with it, right? Okay, so I'm going back here to the rear axle, and what is a typical, on a plain old street car, I ain't talking about your hotshot car that you're going to be trying to outrun somebody in the hole, but I'm talking about what is the gear ratio on a typical rear end? How many turns of the drive shaft produces 1 turn of the wheels on most rear ends, more or less? Got any idea? What about on your race car, what is it? You know, you've heard these numbers before, you just probably had never come to contact like that.
I can look it up on the internet real quick.
Well, this is what it's going to be, is something like this.
355.
Yeah, come on.
So it's gonna turn.
It's going to turn like 3.5 turns of the drive shaft and 1 turn of the wheels. Got that?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Drive shaft turn 3.5 times.
Huh?
Get it to turn the wheel 1 time.
All right, so
So you do that.
4 turns here, 4 turns of the engine and 1 turn of the drive shaft. Here. Okay, then you're coming back here. That 1 turn of the drive shaft is going to turn. You're going to turn 3.5 times on the drive shaft before you get to 1 turn. That's why your doggone engine's running up, and your car ain't going very fast. See? And if you take this and you multiply that, let's just make this easy. Let's say that's 3.0 to 1. Right? That's what you're going to be looking at that.
So the drive shaft's gonna turn 1 time.
The drive shaft's going to turn 3 times, the wheels are going to turn 1 time. That's what it is.
Right. Yeah.
That's how that works. So what's our gear ratio here?
Over all.
Yeah, the whole shoot match from the start here to the wheels. How many turns of the engine are you going to have to? This is not too hard to understand. Let's just make this, that's 4 to 1, 3 to 1. See, I'm just going to take this out and turn this back into a 3 to 1. How many turns of the engine do you get per turn of the wheels?
12.
12. Yeah, there you go. It's not hard. Multiply. Good grief. Now this changes as you go up in your gears here. Some of the old 1.5-ton trucks, you had a 2-speed rear axle.
What?
Yeah, you'd have a 2-speed rear axle. And you remember some of the overdrive transmissions I told you about in the 1960s that had a planetary gear set built in there, and there was a little electronic solenoid with a dog that would grab the outside of that planetary gear set, and you'd take off in low gear, and you'd go up here, and when you let off, it would boom, and it'd go into overdrive, and then you'd have another gear. There's a column shift, an old Biscayne or something. Yeah, and most people have, because y'all are very small boys. Okay, then you go up to second gear, and the overdrive dog has dropped out. You go up to second gear, and then you let off. You actually got a 6-speed transmission, even though you've only got 3 gears on the column. Yeah. But if you don't want your overdrive coming in, you pull this T-handle out. This is overdrive on it, and it disables that. Now, this one guy that I was talking to one time up in North Alabama, old guy. You remember I told you the story about the guy, or did I? About the guy with the Chevelle that he had bought, that he was out running the cops on and all that stuff? No. It was like a 68 Chevelle that was brand spanking new that he had bought, and he was just making, back in those days you could run from the cops and not get in a whole lot of trouble. Nowadays they will put your fanny under the jailhouse and make you do community service forever. And if you hurt anybody while it's under, you go get locked up. So I'm not saying you should run from the cops. But this guy's running from the cops. His 68 Chevelle was so much faster than the cop cars in that county that they couldn't catch him. I mean, he would get way ahead of them, and then he'd spin around and he would go straight back toward them. They just scattered. He'd go right back between them. And all. I said, "There's no way. Why are we going to do that, guy? We can't do anything." And he was dodging all their roadblocks and everything else, and they just couldn't figure out what to do. When he saw a roadblock, he'd turn and go back the other way. So they just couldn't do anything with him. And he says, "This guy's just too fast. We can't even catch him, let alone stop him once we get him caught." And so they called old Sheriff Joe or whoever he was down there. I don't know. And so he comes out with his 63 Biscayne with some big police interceptor engine, a couple of big 4 barrels on it, and he made with gas with 20 cents a gallon, all this kind of stuff. And he's got this real high-speed rear end back there in that thing. Probably got 275 to 1 or something. And he's got overdrive transmission. And the guy that's driving this Chevelle is telling his story. And there's a long road going down into this river valley down there. So he's heading down this river valley just as fast as he can drive that thing. He's got the speedometers all the way going all the way around past 120 and it's beating on the post on the other side. Yeah. And he says, when that old sheriff come around me, I saw him reach up and pull it down in high. He still had 2 gears left to go. He said, and he just gave up then because that sheriff was faster than he was. If he can pass you, he can stop you. Yeah,
back then they probably thought it was funny.
Yeah, well, they didn't like it, and he got locked up and all that. I don't know what happened, but the point, he was about half drunk too. But the thing about it was, this overdrive transmission, the gear ratio on that cop car was so much higher, you see, and that old big motor he had in there, had what now getting off from a stop, it didn't do all that well. But out there on the road, I mean, it could intercept somebody on a long straight road. Now, I heard about this guy in Paul Harvey was talking about this guy on his Corvette, Nick, that was going across he was zipping across the desert out in California, 160 miles an hour, like that. And he said, the California Highway Patrol ain't gonna catch me. He just had the bone buried on his Corvette zipping out across the desert. And they caught him on a Mustang. Pulled him over and gave him a ticket. But, well, they probably locked him up out there. But anyway, that was on the news. They were talking about that. Okay, now, we got that. Everybody understands. You multiply the gear ratio and whatever gear you're in on your transmission times the gear ratio on the rear end. Now, I told you guys that one time I had a 74 Ford pickup that was getting 7 miles to the gallon. And I put a different rear end in it. I went from 332s to 275s, and it doubled my gas mileage. It makes a heck of a lot of difference, guys, the rear end does. And the thing still pulled good, too. But if the pedometer was wrong.
Multiply the gears of the transmission. Multiply the gear ratio.
Whatever gear ratio in the gear you're in, because it's going to change every time you change gears. Multiply.
All the way molded to the drive shaft, the first one.
Yeah, this one here, 1 turn of the drive shaft, 4 turns of the engine. And then the drive shaft's turning that. 3 turns of the drive shaft, 1 turn of the axles, yeah. A gear ratio is a term that describes what? What is a gear ratio? I mean, if somebody asked you, somebody that was totally dumb, they didn't know what a gear ratio was, how would you describe that? Levi Johnston? Levi Johnston, he didn't come up short this time. What I was telling Nick, I saw on Bevel the other day that he made the short list. Okay, right here you got, what you got? How are you going to explain that to somebody? How many teeth are on this gear, and how many teeth are on this gear? How many times does this gear have to turn in order to turn this gear once? You can do it on a bicycle. If you got 2 gears and both of the gears are turning the same direction, all you have is 2 gears, as far as the number of gears. I'm not talking about any other hardware. If all you have is 2 gears and those 2 gears are turning the same direction, what does that mean? If all you have is 2 gears and those 2 gears are turning the same direction, what do you know?
You ain't going nowhere.
No, what you do know is you have a chain.
Oh, yeah.
Like a timing chain. Come on, guys. You know what I'm saying? Add a chain. You can have 2 gears and both of them turn in the same direction if you got a chain between them. What else? Like you remember on the old 350s, a lot of times people get rid of the chain and they put this little gear kit that between the crank and the cam gear, you got some little small gears. You ever seen that? Oh yeah, man.
First time I ever told into a 350 was up here.
Yeah, it's noisy as all get out, but it's stronger and it's a race car thing. You know what I'm saying? Well, if you put it together right, it can be quiet. But what they do is, heck, I can probably find a picture of it on the internet. But you take your crankshaft and your crankshaft, your camshaft. They get rid of the chain. They got a kit you put on here. It's got helical dadgum gears on it, and basically they add a couple of gears. Yeah. Yeah, they do that. They add a couple of gears, and this is driving these gears, and those gears are collected. They're the same exact number of teeth, and they're driving that one.
I've never seen that before in my life.
I'll see if I can find you a picture of that. But there's not a heck of a lot of people that do it, but the people that are serious gearheads, that's why they call them gearheads, because they do this kind of thing. And it works.
That's pretty cool.
And there's never any stretch.
How you put the gears in there?
There's actually a plate that you bolt on it. You got the whole kit, that goes in front of it that you change out every dadgum gear and you add 2 gears and there's a plate and they ride on bearings.
Yeah, Rich might have showed us a picture of that. I want to see that.
I'll see if I can pull up a picture of it and show it to you.
I never thought about
If you do an internet search for gear kit for a 350 Chevrolet, or you know what I'm saying, or whatever. Okay. Why don't you get a 440? All right, now then, the main advantages of helical gears are what? What about it? Now, incidentally, the answer to number 8 was the differences in the number of teeth on gears and mesh. How many turns. So number 9 is what's the main advantages of helical gears are they operate a lot more quietly and are stronger than spur gears. You're not as likely to shear the teeth off of helical gears. I will tell you this though, and I've said this before, when helical gears get noisy, they'll look just fine and make a heck of a lot of racket. They can look good and make a heck of a lot of racket. So be
they're
careful.
quiet.
They're quieter and stronger.
The quieter is stronger than spur gear.
And you can use a spur gear primarily used in what for what? What do you use a spur gear for? Yeah, reverse. And it's the one that can slide in and out. And also, it's the one if you go to put it in reverse and it won't go, you let off the clutch and then push it back in. It moves the gears a little bit, and then it drops in. We used to have people come in about that too. Well, their manual transmission, hey, I can't get it in reverse sometimes. Well, I'll flex a little bit. That's just the way it is. Life in big city. That works.
That's what you gotta do on my car.
All right. You got some questions?